Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Galactic History Show. I'm your host, Chris Hales, and today we have an interesting show. We have Andrew Bartzis on the way to the airport and calling back in about 10 or 15 minutes' time. Really interesting timing, unfortunately. Hope everybody can hear me in the chat room. Hi, everybody there. I'll say good morning to everybody around the world and everybody who listens to this podcast afterwards. This is going to be another one of those shows where it's completely made up as we go along. So this will be interesting. So first of all, a couple of announcements. The seminar in Sarasota in Florida, the beginning of October, is still underway. For details of that, you need to look up the In5D website. I'll fish that out shortly. The situation with Andrew is that on fairly much the spur of a moment, they've decided that it's time to hit Los Angeles and talk to some people in Los Angeles about doing a road trip and actually having it put up as, if you like, a reality show, a TV show. That will be interesting. That will be a very interesting exercise. Kind of left the show today a little last minute for me. So this has happened before, will probably happen again, and we'll just have to play it entirely by ear. Now, the other thing I wanted to remind people is where to look for things that I'm doing. I have 2 radio shows going apart from this one per week. It's a radio show called The Repurposing, which occurs on Sundays in the US and Mondays in Australia. There is the long conversation on that same channel, which is called the One People's Oneness Radio, and that occurs on Wednesdays in the US, Thursdays here in Australia at this time. Whatever time you're listening now is the time that this show occurs. Then there's the Galactic History shows, which occur on Wednesday in Australia, and that would be Tuesday in America. And then the second in the series for the week occurs 2 days later. In Australia, that's on Friday, and in America, that would be on Thursday. Now, the Facebook pages that I'm currently working on are one that's just a fan page for myself, and the other is in fact called Oneness Radio, which is I think a thing called a group page. So it's actually a completely separate thing to the fan page, but will actually be both of them will be used to actually put out the information on the upcoming shows. Now, for the long conversation this week, if my arrangements hold, I'll be having Julian Wells in the first hour, and in the second hour we'll be having a gentleman called Anoka Shiva. He's actually a professor of political science. He's semi-retired, actually probably fully retired at this stage. He's actually a person who has lived in many in comparison to most of us, many alternate communities over the years, and always been interested in them, and has some very interesting experiences and insights into living in those communities. And we're going to have a conversation with him about what makes them work and what makes them successful from his perspective. So, without further ado, I'm actually going to pull a caller in and see what's on their mind. I'm expecting Andrew to dial into the show at some time in about the next 20 minutes. He's probably going to be at the airport, and he's probably, hopefully, going to actually have a decent connection, which will be good. Internet's been very problematic for them. It's gone from very good to non-existent and back again. Partially, I think, because of interference, partially because just the facilities where they've been staying have been a little bit variable, shall we say. However, I can see a few people having fun in the chat room there, so we're going to take a call here. What I'd like people to do, I'm going to ask you to call in. We'll have some conversations depending on what's on your mind, and what we'll do is we'll build up a list of questions for Andrew. Specifically, let's focus on 9/11, given that that's coming up for you guys tomorrow. It's actually 9/11 for me here right now, and it's actually going to be the subject of a conversation that I'm hoping to have either this week or next week with a gentleman who's been a 9/11 truther for many years and gave up trying to tell people about it, started writing songs about it. So that will be an interesting conversation. So I've had a few people pop up here, so what I'm going to do is work my way through the phone calls, and in the chat room what I may do is I'll launch a bigger chat room window here so I can see the questions there. If anyone has a it's just logging on now. If anyone has any questions going that they'd like to put to Andrew, let's start a list. So, area code 785. Hi.
Hey Chris, how you doing? It's Carlos again.
Carlos, how are you today?
I'm good. I just wanted to give you an update. I don't know if you remember me or not, but we talked about Dr. Stephen Greer's Syria's disclosure. Mm-hmm. And, it's a go, and on September 25th I'm going to be showing it, so I've been distributing flyers, and I got a few people that are interested, so, so it is rolling. And
yeah, Carlos, how big was the town? How big was the town that you're in? It was a fairly small area, fairly small town.
Yeah, it's about 800, maybe 900 people. Mm-hmm. So I've been going to the surrounding areas. And I've just been putting flyers just on community buildings or not buildings, but community boards, and there's a community college not too far from here. So I've been doing that, and other people are helping me, so they're definitely interested.
Excellent, excellent. How many people can the theatre hold where you're going to show it?
My guess is around 180.
180 people.
Yep.
And are there any nearby towns that you're going to as well, or is it
no,
just going to be the?
I hope the catalyst, just like I hope people will, and I think some people are ready. I think they're ready to kind of take that next step into the, into their evolutionary step. You know what I mean? Journey.
Yeah.
So.
Is there are there some schools in the town?
Just the high school and the grade school.
Have you tried the high school? You might find that you get some support from the students themselves, because this is it's not a restricted film, is it? I presume it can be played to pretty much any audience.
Yeah, it can. It's not rated R or anything. It just I don't know. Have you not seen the Serious Disclosure?
I've seen about 3/4 of it. It's pretty much stuff that I had seen before. For me, there was not a great deal of new stuff in there, but for someone who's never seen it before, it would be quite gobsmacking.
Yeah,
but it's all information.
In a town like this, no one knows about like UFOs or. Maybe there's like a couple of people I know that like gravitate towards that kind of information, but most of them, where I'm from, I'm in smack dab in the middle of Christian conservative, Republican, so it might be hard to, convince people, but that's their way. And
yeah, I think the trick, Carlos, is not to try to convince them. Just put the information in front of them and say, here, I found this really interesting.
Exactly.
The mainstream, just say to them, the mainstream media doesn't always get it right. Take a look at this.
Right. Exactly.
It's probably the best thing to do. You may find the high school students. You mightn't pick up many, but you'll pick up those that are really interested. Look, I might be misjudging. You might pick up quite a few. Yeah. But I have a feeling. I mean, one of the things that was concerning you is you were feeling quite alone in what you were doing. Right. And I have a feeling that you'll from this you should have I would be amazed if you didn't pick up half a dozen people who were reasonably like-minded that you could continue to communicate with.
Right. Yeah, and I have found through synchronicity, had a cousin come from Scotland and haven't seen him for years, and I just returned home, helped parents, and then went to this small-town restaurant and met someone that I knew and in band, a long time ago, and we started chatting, and all of a sudden I said David Icke is like, whoa, and that just totally, we went through a whole different conversation. That whole night, we stayed up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning talking about all this kind of stuff, and so, and then I kind of let it settle for a while. What should I do? And then Serious Disclosure came out, and that's the movie I'm going to show, and now here I am, and September 25th coming pretty soon, so, and I'm ready for it.
It is. Yeah, look, I mean, for you, for the town, it's actually quite a big event. This is the beginning of, public disclosure for them.
And I took a flyer to the newspaper, the local newspaper here, so I didn't get an evil eye look. It just they looked at the flyer and that was about it. But they're going to put it in the paper, so.
Yeah, what you could do. Yeah, the Serious movie. There's a number of trailers for it on the internet. You could just encourage them to have a look at one of the trailers.
Yeah.
Presuming they have an internet connection, which I would imagine that they do. Do many people in the town actually have and use the internet?
I'm quite sure. There's not a lot else to do around here. The nearest, thing to do is for fun, or like go to Walmart or something. But
sure,
it's pretty. Like you've heard of cow tipping, Yes,
I have. It's a local sport. Okay. Look, well, Carlos, you're doing a fantastic job, and we'll put all our intentions on it having, being a big night, a very big night. So, one of the things to give some thought to is what to do next, which might be to set up a time and place, or at least a mechanism for people to contact you. Because I'm sure it will raise questions. There'll be people who are wanting more information. You might think about what you're actually going to do next with those inquiring minds.
Exactly. Yeah. I was hoping to. Yeah, I was just hoping, after this, I don't know how many. I'm going to guess maybe 10, 12 people are going to show up, and that's cool. That's a start. And after that, I'm just hoping it'll spark something under them, and they'll want to do something about it.
I hope so too. I do. Now, Carlos, is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we go on to the next question?
I just, and you don't have to answer this, just what Andrew can. There's a book called, I don't know what it's called, but it's a Dr. Judy Wood, and she wrote about how they use space technology to bring the towers down, and I wonder if you have heard of her or if she has a different perspective on how they brought the towers down. So, and that was it.
Yep, that's 9/11 is something that I wanted to go into today, and let me just check and see whether Andrew's popped up here. Not yet. I might try call it, but I'll be calling him directly at about the half hour if he doesn't ring in, so we'll see how that goes. Look, Dr. Judy Wood's book, I think it's called Why Did the Towers Fall? I've heard many interviews with her, seen the material that she's got on the internet. She puts together a tremendous case for the key thing it does is it absolutely questions the official view.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
she poses many questions. As a scientist, she recognises she can't absolutely answer the questions because access to the crime scene, if you like, is impossible unless you're a time traveller. And the explanation that she gives is far more cogent than anything that you'd ever see in the mainstream media. It's because it looks at it from a very critical perspective. It looks absolutely at what happened from her keen eye. The photographic evidence that she has also assembled is actually very good as well. She's got a large collection of photos and videos, and the one that's particularly compelling is, for me, is one of the top of the tower as it collapsed. And if you watch, you don't even have to watch particularly carefully. If you watch what happens to the big steel beams that are left exposed for the last few seconds before the tower really starts to plummet downwards, they actually literally turn into dust. And you can see them, you can see the dust just fall away. And these are steel, these are full-on, the core beams are actually the central support beams for the entire structure, running up through the centre of the building. So the things, the lift wells, I think, were built in from memory, and those things just don't turn to dust. And of course, we could have a long discussion about the other things that she found, the other evidence of advanced technological attack that she found on the scene around through photographic evidence and through some video evidence, and I think she did some interviewing with people who were there. A very fascinating book, and she's done a lot of interviews. She's done at least a couple of interviews with Veritas Radio and probably many others over the last years, because she's been doing this for a long time. So I'd certainly, given that 9/11 is on everybody's mind on this date, if you want to point anyone at a very if you like, scholarly work on 9/11, hers would be a great one to point to. And the other one is the group called I think it's Architects for 9/11 Truth.
Yes.
Or Architects, yeah. And their work, they've got I think they have multiple websites up. They actually put up a billboard in, I think it was in Texas, very large billboard, and all it said was, did you know there was a third tower that fell in 9/11, referring to Building 7, because what's become clear is that many people do not know that there was a third building that fell down. And not that it wasn't as high as the other buildings, it was a much lower building, a much far fewer floors, but it was not struck by anything to damage it to the extent that it needed to fall down. And again, it was built the same way as the main buildings. It was a steel beam type construction. Those buildings don't fall over unless they're demolished, and you only have to watch the footage. Now you're looking at a demolition. So the 9/11 truth movement has a huge repository of information that it's actually put together over the 12 years since that event, and the sum total of the human thought that's pouring out about that is enormous, and it's going to take another boost. Every time we hit this date, it takes another boost because people re-look at it. So, Carlos, I'm really hoping that one of these days it will be publicly acknowledged that the official explanation was false. Andrew's information about it is very interesting. There's a series of videos that are being published on the internet that everyone needs to have a look at if you're following along this information. These are the interviews done by Lance White, the Zany Mystic, with Andrew at Mount Shasta, and there's a series of 20. I've actually seen about 12 of them, and I'll catch up with the rest of them this week. It's an expansion of what came out during those 3 initial interviews that he and I did on Walking in Energy. Some areas are new, some areas are just in there with more detail. but the sum total of that is that the information, I'm actually just dropping onto YouTube at the moment so I can pull up a web address to find that, because I don't recall the name of the actual channel that it was on. I was talking to a gentleman last night, Carlos, who's displayed all of the symptoms that Andrew was actually talking about when he says some people have trouble with the information. He was having to listen to things many, many times to actually absorb the information. These videos I've found, I think, are actually probably a little easier on that aspect than some of the radio shows we've done, which have been extremely intense. How do you find them, Carlos? Do you find them, you have to keep going back and re-listening to parts?
Yeah, you did about 2 weeks ago. You guys did a show with Andrew Teal. It was you, and I can't remember the other person. And once Teal and Andrew got on, I was asleep in 15 minutes. I was just so tired I couldn't go anymore. And in radio shows, when I was on the first time, he gave me the explanation of my question, and I just totally, it took me aback, and I had to listen to it 2 times. So yeah. He has that effect, and even I just started watching the YouTube thing, and it is easier, but there's just somehow it's just like I get this some weird feeling or something. So it's cool, and it takes a lot to download, but the information is resonating with me, and I definitely feel like it's more truthful than even some of the other stuff that I've read and come across. So.
Indeed, indeed. The video channel is actually called Creating 5D. If you look up Creating 5D on YouTube, you'll find Galactic History Parts 1. Looks like they have up to at least Part 15. I'll just check the actual site. No, I'm seeing Part 20. So it looks like they've got the whole series up there now, which is excellent. Go ahead, Carlos.
I'm sorry. Did they say that on Tower 7, wasn't there like a command center on the top, and that's why they destroyed it? Or is there another reason for it?
Ooh, several reasons that I've heard on that.
Right.
There's always many reasons. There's always more than one reason for these things happening, and
yeah.
The explanations for Tower 7 were that there was a massive amount of gold stored in the basement. Reputedly, the gold that Kennedy actually borrowed, if you like, that is President John F. Kennedy borrowed back in the 60s from the trust in Indonesia that was run by Suharto, President Suharto over there, who actually was trustee of this enormous hoard of gold, and actually allowed Kennedy to take some and use it to... Kennedy's plans were to reboot the financial system of the United States. That's one of the reasons why Kennedy was killed. And they are related. They are, in fact, related incidents. They reach back through time to the time of Kennedy. Now, the other aspect of it was that apparently there was an enormous amount of paper evidence that was stored in the building as to, nefarious dealings by the high end of the cabal, which they also conveniently destroyed when the building went down. So, gold heist, covering up evidence are the 2 main reasons I've heard for Building 7's demolition, because it was a demolition. It's absolutely clear. It collapsed the building. Have you ever seen the Tower 7 footage? The Building 7 footage? Yep.
Yes.
Does it look like a demolition to you?
It looked like something. It looked like plane didn't go into it. But I didn't buy the whole thing anyway, so. But
No.
And that news footage of the BBC news reporter that was reporting that the tower had fallen, but it was still behind her, and it was still up.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes, that was an oops, a big oops. and that is such a well-known incident. I really hope that there's actually a good piece of footage of that on YouTube. I've never actually attempted to find it, but it's probably out there. So, and if you do find it, it's something that's worthwhile showing to people, because a lot of the time, Carlos, you only have to show them one little piece of information that raises enough questions that the walls come down for them. Excellent. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Carlos. That's okay.
I went back to school for just one semester. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't. But I took speech class, and one of my speeches was for persuasion speech. And I talked about the Pentagon and the airplane that didn't hit, and of course people were rolled their eyes. It was like, no, that's not true. Then I showed them the evidence, and like after the speech, and it was only a 15-minute speech, so I had to cram in as much information as I could. And I did start turning some minds, so hopefully I planted some seeds in about 15 people, So when this information comes out again, it's like, holy cow, that guy was right, or he had that information.
Well, that's actually what will tend to happen. They'll tend to come looking for you when all this stuff really finally starts to break through the mainstream media. That was at the local high school?
No, it was at in Kansas City, because I lived on the other side of the state in Kansas, and we had bigger towns and everything. I lived in a place called Lawrence, and I decided to go back to school, get a major in history or something, but it didn't work out for me because I just couldn't. I was in a different vibration or something, because after reading David Icke, Michael Bessarian, and all them guys, going back to school and learning stuff that I learned in high school just didn't appeal to me. And but I just did that one thing that I did. Maybe that was my purpose all along, in the high scheme of things, to kind of plant some seeds that way too. So. Yep.
I know exactly how that goes, because I know many people who just didn't make it through high school at all. They never actually connected with the way that education was being presented, and they always felt the information that they were receiving was manipulative. And people will express it differently, but because the education system isn't really an education system, it's not really in trying to teach you how to think, it's just trying to teach you what to think and when to think it.
Yeah.
And it's trying to turn out the kind of people that will acquiesce to the system that we're in. It's not really about training people to have fine minds, which is that's what we're sold as education, but that's actually not what's happening.
I call it the indoctrination factory. They just
it is. Oh, it is
a factory. Just.
And in fact, if you look at the way that the actual education system unfolds, you are taught to line up, don't question authority. You're taught to remember things and regurgitate them, and other things that really work for the system to create people who'll be absorbed into the industrial aspect of the system, so they can function inside the production companies and facilities that we all actually operate in. That's essentially what it's working. And there's a whole range of levels in that, right through from the people who actually do the hardcore physical things, through to those that administer. But the mindset is all the same. The acquiescence to a higher authority. It's a training in hierarchy. It's the way I've come to perceive the education system for the most part. When you move into university, it certainly becomes more academic and more knowledge-based and more informational-based. But there's an aspect of universities which are also used to filter, I'll be blunt, they filter psychopaths to the top. They filter people through who are quite happy to trample on others for whatever purpose motivates them. And it's this incredibly competitive aspect that's brought in, and alongside a strong line of pursuit of academic knowledge. But it's the actual pursuit of academic knowledge is in and of itself controlled. The actual things that you're allowed to research are controlled. So the end result is that we don't have the educational system that's required to advance this planet. It's all about advancing the system and not the people. I have a specific view of the system which I've been developing for some time. Well, when I say developing, I'm trying to develop a methodology for talking about the system to people who are interested in listening. And this is, in fact, what I'll do, Carlos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip through the other callers, and because I've realised there's one specific thing that I can talk about today that I really want to get out there that you guys would find useful in the conversations that we're going to have with others over the next period of time about what the system really is and how it's always worked. And it's an explanation which doesn't really require you to go into a lot of detail. You don't necessarily have to start talking about things like 9/11, unless people have been, there are some who are so asleep they barely noticed that 9/11 occurred, so they're tough. But it's a view that allows you to offer an explanation of why the world's so crazy. It looks like it should work, but it doesn't. So I'll work my way through the rest of the questions with the callers first, and then we'll have that discussion. So hang in there, Carlos, because you'll probably find it very useful.
All right, thank you.
And it is a bit different. I've been talking about it on air on a little radio station in South Carolina, and this is the sort of the process that we've arrived at. So Carlos, I'll pop you back on hold. And just for those in the chat room, I have been writing down the questions that I'm seeing, and okay, question. Ooh, Rackmeister's posing something here that I'll have to read a little more carefully. But the questions I've had from the chat so far, one was about ringing in the ears. That's actually a good one because I do have that myself, and would find it very interesting to know whether it's related to anything special that's going on. Secondly was about, when we ascend, where do we go to? That's probably not a simple question to answer. The third question was about Dr. Judy Wood and how closely her explanations align with what Andrew sees in the Akashic. Another interesting question. There is some conversation about 9/11 on the video series that I've just been talking about, but not in a huge amount of detail. What I was hoping to do with Andrew was to go through 9/11 in some detail, the three main aspects: the towers crashing, the Pentagon attack, and the other plane that was downed some distance away. They all require some attention in and of themselves. So I'm going to pull in the next caller.
How do you put it in there now?
Hello, area code 727. Hello, area code 727.
I go right here.
Oh, I'd say that sounds like there's another conversation going on there, so we'll try the next caller. Okay, area code 204. Could we have your name and your question, please?
Hi, my name is Joanne. Chris, I'd like to thank you, Andrew, Nickie, and Julian for the wonderful work that you all do, your generosity of spirit, and your dedication to service to others. And I have a couple of addenda to some recent programs. The first was the phenomenal interview that Andrew, you, and Teal presented, and it's about the expanding exposure to Teal's art. I think the idea of using the posters, the billboards, and the newspapers is awesome. And the other observation I might like to add is using stickers. I don't know if this would be viable or not, but stickers are great because therefore with stickers, you have mobile billboards, the type of thing that could be placed upon backpacks, purses, laptop cases, luggage, and even bumper stickers.
Sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it will work. I think there needs to be probably a minimum size, and something we'd have to actually ask Teal about, so that the detail was big enough to see at a glance. One of the things that occurred to me is if you were writing, sending information to any aspect of the system, you could actually include one of these things at A4 size, which would be the letter size that that is used in the US. A4 is a European standard, which is actually used in this country, which is why it's the first thing that popped out of my mouth. But at that size, the detail in her imagery would be big enough to see at a glance. Now, as you shrink that down, might become less effective, but absolutely, bumpers. We spend a lot of time looking at the back of the car in front of us.
No, I was thinking too also more of the idea of laptop cases and backpacks, because backpacks are great because they hit university campuses and schools, and laptop cases hit airports and also luggage. So pick the idea around, and again with the idea of size, if it would be appropriate, that would be a really great way of getting this out literally globally. And in addition, these are the sorts of things that once things get rolling could possibly be mailed out to other countries. I'm calling in from Canada, so we're right next door to the United States, but it would be great to be able to initiate something like that at a global level.
It would be, in fact. The idea of having the artwork in small sizes, it just occurred to me that even to see it at a small size, even if you couldn't see the detail, there's such eye-catching images that if you saw it at a small size from a distance, and then ran across one that was larger, you would remember it.
Yeah, they're very distinctive.
Extremely distinctive. I have seen a little bit of artwork that is similar, a little bit of the sacred geometry artwork from a few websites I've seen is similar, but Teal's work stands out as being quite unique. In fact, I thought they would make absolutely lovely stained glass windows when you look at the form of them. Yeah.
And I don't know if this would work or not. Andrew probably would, because of the whole impact of color. If these images could be transmitted electronically, I was thinking more like the background to a on a computer screen, you know, like desktop and that sort of thing. I don't know if that would work or not, because sometimes you need the actual print for the impact of the color to make the needed connection to the human senses. So I don't know, but that's something else to look into.
It is. I just, you know, there's a lot of television shops and shops that sell lots of computers, and they play screen shows all the time. And people wander around these shops looking at them. You know, if anyone is working in a business like that, they could actually make up a screen show of Teal's artwork, because the images that are on her website are actually good enough quality. You can download them, and they're good enough quality to use on the screen show. So anyone who's listening who wanted to do that, you could actually simply leave it playing. The other place you could actually do that is, you know, shopping centres, malls. They, in this country anyway, there seems to be a proliferation of large screens being used for advertising. In fact, that's something that most of the malls would actually, you know, it would cost, you'd have to pay for it, but it may be a case of, you know, if there's funding available for this process, there could be screen shows playing in pretty much every mall in every country that has the facility, if we could put together enough money for it. That would be good, because they're actually quite often, you know, about 5 feet by 2 feet. They're quite big. Yeah.
No, the other thing I was thinking of is like screensaver types of images on computers, and to be able to transmit them via email or transmit connections. Because the viewing audience, I mean, one person emails another, and so on and so forth, and it goes viral. So whether or not that sort of thing, again, the impact of the color on the screen as opposed to the color printed, if that would have the same visual impact and the same mental awakening effect. Is something to explore.
It's a question for teal. If the colour is critical, I suspect the form is more critical than the colour. The relationship, it's the colours relative to one another that actually, you know, are responsible for creating the form. So provided the colours aren't too dull and lifeless, I think the effect would be there on pretty much anything you actually put these on, whether it be a TV screen, a laptop screen, or even some form of printed output. For instance, I've got a little inkjet printer. It's not a wonderful color. It's not a wonderful color printer unless you put gloss paper in it, and even on plain paper where its color performance isn't that impressive, there's still enough of the original feel there, I think, for it to work. But you know, it's a great project, and I'm really looking forward to it pushing forward. So, Joanne. Yep. Did you have
those ideas?
You go ahead.
Yeah, okay, no, I was just going to say possibly those are ideas you could run by Teal and Andrew.
They are indeed. They're indeed. I have to actually communicate a few things to Teal, so that's actually on my list.
Great.
Was there something else you wanted to talk about? You said you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, second addendum, and I'll be brief because I know you've got other callers and you want to get a hold of Andrew. This is the discussion you had last call with Nickie about the owner's manual for the human body, which I think is absolutely awesome.
Yes.
I believe that a number of your listening audience are light workers with a small L as opposed to a capital L, and by that I mean not engaged in professional energy work. What your listeners might find very useful on a daily basis is using muscle response testing, and that's something just about everybody can do to determine what are healthy choices and less healthy choices for the body. And there's tons of information about that available on the internet, so anyone who's not familiar with that can easily check that out. But muscle response testing is very useful for determining things like allergies, determining things like food sensitivities, and for those listeners who are able to access the Akashic records on their own, if you're able to read the Akashic records, using the two things in tandem are awesome, because the records are such a wealth of information, and it's something you can use as a very useful tool to customize what works for your body and helps your spirit on this journey.
Any websites you can recommend?
For the muscle response? No, I didn't. This is something I would say maybe just type in muscle response testing on YouTube and see what comes up. I've been using muscle response myself for a number of years, and we sort of fine-tuned it. Initially, I got information reading Stephen Hawking's, and I also I had some allergy work done for me using the NAET protocol, N-A-E-T, and that's with dealing with allergies. And it's the sort of thing that it can be used virtually anywhere, and just by simply asking yes or no questions. It's basically the same thing as using the pendulum, but you don't need to use the pendulum. You're simply using your body.
So it's dowsing.
Yeah, similar to that. Not quite. You simply make a statement. For example, if you can hold the item close to your solar plexus, that works the best. This, for example, I can consume, this food is a healthy choice for my body. And just see which way your body moves. If your body moves forward, it indicates a yes answer. If it moves backwards, it means a negative answer. And it shows that what food you can tolerate. So that's basically like a one-sentence description. But obviously you need to, it's the sort of thing that needs to be developed and practiced a little bit. But my husband and I also have been able to check our own Akashic records, and we've used the two things together because sometimes we'll get some information that may not be quite as detailed as we need, and we need to basically fine-tune it. And the two things together help very, very much. And for example, one of the comments that Nickie made. She was listing a number of foods that were very, very beneficial, and I believe one of them was Swiss chard.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, Swiss chard. It's a form of lettuce. It's a form of lettuce, I believe.
It's full of all sorts of things. However, Swiss chard also belongs to the same group of vegetables as spinach and beet greens, and they're a very concentrated source of oxalic acid. And this compound binds with calcium, and also this can lead to, in some people, to kidney stones. Now, that's something I didn't know about me, but when I was reading the records, I asked about that and found out that it's okay to eat, but not eat them on a regular basis. In other words, it's not the sort of thing I can eat every day, maybe once a week or twice a week, depending on the amount. So it's the sort of thing that we are responsible for our own bodies, and that's the bottom line. In today's society, we're all looking for a quick fix, and we're looking for something that's easy and mainly convenient and easy that we can not necessarily have to think it through ourselves. But it is really our responsibility to look after what goes into our mouth. And sometimes that takes a bit of, and it takes a bit of planning and a bit of forethought. And it simply takes, in some cases, a little bit of digging and a little bit of research, because you've got to have the motivation to find out what works for you. You can't take what is simply put out on the mainstream and say, this is good for you, this is good for you, this is good for you. Because I'm a baby boomer raised in the 50s, and the 50s the thing was, oh, you don't breastfeed your children, you put them on formula. Well, that's what the experts said, and that's what a generation of mothers did. And not the healthiest thing. So it's the sort of thing you have to put yourself in the driver's seat of your own vehicle.
Absolutely, and you've nailed it very well, actually, there, Joanne. The knowledge is something that you have to key yourself into. You have to put a bit of effort into growing your knowledge about your body, and then you have to actually do. You have to take action, and we're not talking about anything spectacular here. We're just talking about following through and consistently, buying foods that will do what they need to do for you. Taking the time to prepare them, and paying attention to your body, I think, is a really key thing. We don't pay enough attention to how we're actually physically feeling, and if you attach a value to, if it's really valuable for me to actually feel really good, if we attach enough value to that and prioritize it properly, we will be a lot healthier, and that includes exercise too. It's the diet is part of the equation. The other side is actually physically engaging the body, because it needs to be moved. It needs to be put under pressure, literally daily, to actually to make sure that the cell changeover that's supposed to take place does, because it's all about maintaining that metabolism. So energy in, energy out, in terms of food that you take in and physical work that you do. It's all part of a big equation. Again, not something that is emphasized enough at schools.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Okay, well, thank you very much for letting me share that information to the listening audience, and hopefully there'll be some food for thought that people can apply to their own lives.
Yeah, great thoughts. Thanks, Joanne, for joining us, and
thank you again.
we'll hopefully hear from you at some future. We'll hear from you at some future point.
Sincerely hope so, because I have some questions for Andrew, but I'm not going to monopolize the phone because you've got other things to do, and the information, the questions I have can wait for another time. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Joanne. Bye for now. Excellent. Now, not seeing any extra questions to read out from the chat just at this point, so we'll move on to the next person with their hand up, which is area code 951. Hi, could we have your name and your question, please? Area code 951. Okay, they are probably just listening, so we'll pop you back on hold. And let's try area code 612. Hello, could we have your name and your question, please?
Hi, Chris. It's Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Okay. Awesome videos, 20 videos. I watched them all. they're awestruck. Abounding videos. They're really, really good. Chris, you're going to enjoy the rest of them. They get better as they go. I mean, they're all
cool.
good. But
Yeah, that's very cool. Actually, I started on them last week, and I was kind of moving through them, and then several things jumped up locally here that were going on that took my attention away, and there was actually only 12 up there when I worked my way through them, and now that the other 8 are up there, well, I guess I've got something to do while I'm working for the next few days. But it was really a nice flow of information, I felt, a little more paced than the audio interviews that we've been doing.
To me, there's lots of new information, although there's lots of the information that we know is expanded on, and it expands you, expands your vision. Yeah,
yes, it does.
It's really good. And I just wanted to address, how you have people having to listen to it over and over.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? This is how much brainwashed everybody can know that they're brainwashed. Because I do that too. I listen to a 25-minute one. If I get to a part where I don't quite understand it, but I understand it, and I want to get some more of the detail, I'll just put it back a minute or two and re-listen to it. Sometimes I'll re-listen to that part 5 times, But, that's a big clue as you're listening to them, how much brainwashing has to come off of us. It's really, really good. It's a good sign that they're making a very awesome impact inside yourself,
Well, the programming that we've all been subjected to for our entire lives is so profound. Even people who would consider themselves quite completely deprogrammed, and includes me, we slip back into language which is programming language. We slip back into responses that are programmed responses, because it's just so deeply innate, and you have to consciously correct yourself. You'll find me, and you'll probably have heard this on the radio, where I'll correct something I've said because it's just a completely an old paradigm reaction. Poof, comes out, and just pops right out before you can even you tend to self-correct. You can feel these responses coming on and just stop them and make a choice. But sometimes they just pop straight out. It is incredibly profound when you look at what's been done to us in terms of the degree of effectiveness of the control system, the domination and control system, as Andrew puts it. It's brilliant. They did a fantastic job in actually. But brilliant in a negative way, because it's not real. It's a construct. In fact, have you heard the interview between? Well, I wouldn't call it an interview between an interview. I'd call it a conversation between Teal and Andrew, where I was present and facilitating to some degree, because it was a lot of the time it was a case of stand back and just let it happen. Yeah. They are. Oh, no, I've got so stuck on that I've lost my train of thought. If you listen to that call, there are various points where they talk about the control system and what it's done for us, and the fact that at a higher level, at the highest of levels, if you like, it's all part of an educational process. And it's if you actually reach that point, and it takes a while for people to reach that point where they can dig out of the emotional responses that the system has actually taught them and view it from the perspective of, okay, we're consciousness having a journey. We've undertaken this experience, and in order for this experience to actually be the experience it needs to be, then the negativity has to be present, and that we in the end, if as we exit this situation, we have to remove the judgment that follows the emotional response in order to get the perspective required to learn the lessons fully, because the lesson in the end is if you want to take the lessons coming in layers, the lesson in the end is that in the journey of consciousness, there is a need to experience all in order to move forward. And that's a difficult spot for a lot of people to reach, because they're stuck in the emotional response end.
Yeah, the brainwashing plan was so profound. It fooled us. I mean, thank God we have our brothers and sisters that are up a ways from us, if you know what I mean, galactic-wise, that are helping us, you know, giving us a little tap on the shoulder. We're here, you know, helping us to wake up. And giving us that little jump start. Thank God. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Yeah, and it's very profound, but even if you don't want to do what I do, just listen to them over and over again. Every time you listen to them again, you get something new out of it. And it's every time you get a revelation, I call it a revelation or an aha moment, you're growing in vibration, and your vibration is changing. It's really good. Really, really
And
good.
it's a situation where once there are particular doors that once they're open, they can't be closed again. I mean, 9/11 is a good example. When you have your paradigm pinged, when you're presented with a piece of evidence, and you can get past the cognitive dissonance of realizing that you've been shown something that's at odds with everything you've ever learned. If you can step past that point and accept that what you're looking at has to be examined further because it's contradicting a major belief of yours, you can't close that door. You just can't. I mean, that's what happened to me, and I've talked about the photograph that I saw back in 2009 that just shifted my reality in a moment. That was an amazing, looking back on it, was an amazing experience. It was, the walls crashed down. Twinkle of an eye, the walls crashed down. And, I mean, for you, have you been awake all your life? Or
No.
did you have an experience?
Well, it started, okay, I traced it back. Remember the question you asked me? The very first thing I believe it started with was, because I come from the Christian realm and Catholic before that. It was when a man of God who was deep, I mean, out of the box of Christianity, but still taught in the church and stuff, I went to his website, and his website, I clicked on a link, and it went to that pastor in Alaska that worked with the bad guys. What's his name?
Yes, I know the fellow. His name will come back to me in a moment. He
The
did a lot
oil
of work
thing.
in the oil industry. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a pastor.
Well, I listened to him, and that led me to LaRouche Pack, the guy that ran for president back in the 70s, and who's awakening the young ones. You know, they're like a political agenda, but he's awakening them to the real history of the United States. There I learned about the bad guys, and then I cried one night. I said, okay, this is bleak, God, this is bleak. There's the bad guys. Is there any good guys? And there goes my journey in buying the direct and the dinar and all that. But, yeah, I just want to say that sometimes it's hard to find the videos, so I posted them all, 20 of them, on the Diamonds Forever 31.blogspot. If they're all in one spot. And they're amazing.
Are you talking about the videos again from Andrew?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the best way to find the whole collection is to go onto YouTube and do a search for Creating 5D. That's just the word creating with 5D at the end of it. That'll take you straight to the channel where they're all actually present. This is the actual spot they're all held in too.
Well,
so
yeah,
good place
just so
to
you
point
know, I've
people
tried that many times. They're making it hard for us to find. So I don't want to advertise, but I was just letting everybody know it's all in one spot. So if you have trouble finding them.
Okay.
And
No,
then
I didn't realize people are having trouble finding them, are they?
And be careful as you listen to them, because sometimes if you find them on YouTube in the block, there'll be like one show missing if you're not paying attention to the number you're missing. Like I almost missed number 14, which I got startled when it turned on, and Chris was not the one in the or not Chris, but who's the guy who's doing most of them?
Lance White is the person.
Lance, yeah, Lance, you weren't in the chair. Somebody else was. But I would have missed that one. All of them were profound, even with the other guy, with the three of them. Yeah.
Interesting. So. Yeah, no, I haven't reached number 14 yet, so I'll look out for that one. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But look,
and there's a little surprise at the last one too. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about teal. That lady brought that up. Thank you for saying all what you did, about the muscle testing and being responsible. That really makes sense. But on Teal's website, there's all those products she said with her that you can purchase, T-shirts, everything. There's like 100 products or more for each of her artwork. If you go on her website, you can purchase that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then just a little testimony, regarding consciousness change, and you see it all over the news right now. But I'm telling you, be careful what you desire, what you think, because it happens the next day. I'm finding
Yes. Yeah. Look, I've had a number of conversations with energy workers who are saying that we are so close to what they call the 0 point. That is the point where the event kicks in, or at least an energetic aspect of the event kicks in. That they're almost expecting it at any day, and it's there's such a wide range of perspectives on exactly what's going to happen next and when. It's actually quite extraordinary, and virtually everybody, and you probably find the same thing, Elizabeth. Virtually anyone who's paying attention to the alternate media and to all of the stuff that's going on, are feeling that the shift is imminent. Are you getting that, Elizabeth?
Well, the sign I'm looking for from listening to Andrew and others, up till then, is the standing up of the people, like in the same numbers as the 60s and 70s. And, like the Syria thing. And I believe it's going to be like a process, waves, finally it'll come to a crescendo. I like to hear people that were in the hippie ages back in the 60s and 70s. I've been trying to find some people that were prominent in that age and doing that, how it really panned out, what made them all stand up. Was it one thing or was it a lot of things? So, that gives us a clue. But I'm hoping it's not going to be the standing up in the middle of the winter, because I'm in Minnesota, cold in the winter.
Yeah, that would be a cold thing to do in Minnesota in the wintertime, is stand out in the streets.
But
the event is clearly related to what we do, okay, and not what the system does.
Absolutely.
So it's
how we think, our thought.
Yeah, and there's going to be that 100th monkey moment, that 7 billionth monkey moment, where some particular thought will sweep around the collective. It'll be a triggering thought, and we won't miss it. Everyone who's in the alternative media will be absolutely galvanized by it, and to a degree, the energy that sweeps out from the alternative media and the people who are participating in this whole block of thought that's going out there will be one of the ignition points for
You're talking about
that
like
energy.
One of those clicks, like one of the clicks, like December 21st. I had a profound one of those. Yeah. Yeah.
Look, and I think it's not going to be related to a date that's been mooted by somebody or an event that's been foretold, or it's going to be something completely out of left field, and everyone will just go, whoa, and it will be like a Mexican wave. It'll literally sweep around like that.
Yeah. I believe dreams are already starting. With the children, they can. I've heard lots of testimonies about dreams too, but the children could be dreaming already. They're just not talking yet, So.
They are grossly underestimated in this process. I think the children are not being listened to.
We're going to be amazed.
It's just part of this process. In a sense, we're going to be discovering our own inner child in this process. It's something that keeps coming up in conversations, as that kind of childlike aspect.
Yeah. Well, teal is very profound in healing. I just want to give my two examples about thought and thinking. Okay, my son is really bad. He's rude. Blah, blah, blah. So it's like I'm pulling out my hair, like, what they say, energy vampire, stealer, vampire, whatever. So I just, yesterday I said, okay, what can I do? What can I do? Well, I went to Teal's website and stumbled. The first 6 shows on her YouTube website answered my questions. Oh, my God, it's so profound. And it's about thought and more than that. My son got fired from his job yesterday. He came home. The people at the job gave him some leads, and it was very stupid how he got fired. And it's the system, the court, and all that system. You know, they did a double whammy on him. They don't want you. They don't want you to succeed. You know. So he came home. The day he got fired, he came home and made his first call. On the first call, he got a job, and he's working at a better job, where the owner owns businesses on this whole block by a college. Wow.
So did he learn from that, you know, one door closes, another one opens? Did that occur to him in the process?
No, but he must have been determined, I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to get a job. And boom, the first phone call. Because he's a worrier and anxiety-er usually. And by the way, the job that he got fired for, on the first day of his training, he was a telemarketer. First day of his training, the very first person he called live, he made a sale. I mean,
there you go.
Things are going on like that, yeah. So.
Yeah, look, the manifestation aspect of it is one of the other things that the energy guys are telling me, that you know, manifestation will become almost instantaneous. So
yeah.
You're quite right. We have to be careful and conscious about what we think and the choices that we make.
Yes,
Very
I'll
good.
let you go. But Teal's really good to learn that, and she's simple. Yeah. So everybody go to her YouTube site too. That's really good. So love you, Chris.
Excellent.
I didn't mean to stay so long.
No problem, Elizabeth. No, look, we're filling in rapidly here. What I'm going to do is take us to a break now. I'll see if Andrew's contactable. He is at the airport, and at some point he'll be getting on a plane. The phone quality when I called him before the show was shocking. There was really no way we could have held a conversation. He was hoping to get better reception at the airport, so I'll give that a shot. But after, if he can't come on, after that, what I wanted to do was run through my explanation of how the world works, just to put it out there for this particular audience, because I don't think you've heard it in detail yet. And I'm hoping it will assist those conversations you're having with people around you who are sitting there wondering why the world is such a crazy, messed up place. So I'll thank you for your call, Elizabeth, and for your energy and your time. And
You too,
I hope it's my privilege to be doing this. So I'll pop you back on hold, and we'll play a little bit of music so people can actually go grab a drink. And I would like to play this. I keep playing this song. I'm quite enamored of how it makes me feel. So one more time at least. See you in 4 minutes. And we're back. This is the Galactic History Show, and where I'm sitting right at the moment, it is 7:13 a.m. It's Wednesday, 11th of September 2013, and I hope wherever you're sitting, you know, that the future is actually looking like I'm viewing it, which is amazing. And I hope you're knowing what I'm feeling, which is that this shift that we're all anticipating is going to be so much better than we can possibly even imagine. That's my intent. So, just spoke to Larry Bazell, who's one of Andrew's close assistants. They're actually getting in the car and they're on the way to the airport. They're apologising profusely for the timing overlap. They as a group, they are actually, if you like, in the flow. They're actually sort of moving from situation to situation as they arise. And in fact, they're on their way to Los Angeles. They're on their way to Los Angeles to actually put in process the idea of doing a trip around the US and actually having it filmed and trying to make it part of a reality series to introduce the galactic historian concept and the information to the mainstream. That's what they've jumped into next. So a very it's a very worthwhile thing. You know, they know people who have contacts. You know, they know people who know people, and they're going to jump straight down and work on the next aspect of pushing this information out to the mainstream, because that's in fact what it's all about. So I'll be talking to them in about 15 minutes. They're going to spend a little time on the phone with us while they're either in transit or at the airport. Hopefully they won't be shifting bags while we're talking, but we'll be able to catch up with Andrew and a little bit about his plans for what comes next. In the meantime, I wanted to put some thought out there. Now, on the weekends for about the past 6 weeks, myself and gentlemen, you'll probably some of you will recognise these names, a gentleman called Brad Smits, another called Scott Bartle, both Australians. Scott's from Perth, Brad's from my hometown Melbourne, have been doing a show with a couple of other characters. The host of the show, his name is Danny, and actually it's Danny Brown, in fact. And Danny's been working in the TV and radio industry for 40 years and pretty much done everything, been everywhere. He knows what's going on in the world, and a couple of years back he tried to start a truth show on a little radio station called WOIC in South Carolina, and he called it Keep Talking America. Well, the first time he started it, it really went nowhere because people just weren't ready for it. And being a hardcore truther, he realised a few months back that people were now ready for it, so he fired it up again. And he'd gotten to know Brad Smits, and Brad pulled in myself and Scott, and also a couple of other people. There's a gentleman from the Caribbean who jumps in on occasional shows, another from Germany who jumps in on occasional shows, and we've been putting forth our thought on what the system is, what it really is, and how we've arrived at the situation. So there's a certain amount of historical discussion that's gone on about you know, how the countries of this planet were manipulated, or should I say the people of the countries of this planet were manipulated into certain sets of beliefs which have served the purpose of what Andrew calls the domination and control system, for steering the entire thought of the planet to the situation we currently see ourselves in. Now, to be honest, the situation we see ourselves in is actually way better than I thought we would be in when I first started to look at the geopolitical information on the internet, say 3 years ago. That was pretty scary, pretty depressing stuff. What I learned along the way was most of it was fear porn. Most of it was put out there to steer our thoughts in a particular direction. So what we've arrived at in this show that we're doing is a way of describing the world, which one of the reasons I wanted to put it out there is for Carlos, who called in at the start of the show. It's very difficult to jump into a conversation with people and give them a bigger picture that either doesn't scare the hell out of them or doesn't cause them to roll their eyes back in disbelief and change the subject, shut you down. You know, we've all been there, done that, as far as having those conversations, getting that response, finding it frustrating, finding that the harder you sell it, the more it's actually bounced, you know, deflected, and, you know, the more the situation doesn't go the way we want to, which is simply to open people's eyes. And first of all, I have to say I'm very fond of Scott's approach, is that if you want to open people's eyes, find the one question. There's always one question that you can ask people that will start them asking their own questions and doing their own research, and you know, learning to pick that one question, like you know, why is it that there's so much conflicting information about 9/11? If the original story was absolutely true, why all the controversy? Why are there 1,500 architects and engineers starting up websites, putting up billboards? What's going, you tell me what's going, why is it happening that way? Get them thinking about the information they're receiving. So here's how the explanation of the world goes. Now there's really two aspects to it. One is the explanation, the overall explanation of how the domination, this is my explanation, how the domination and control system, at its core, what it's doing, how it actually works. There's a theme that it has, which you'll recognize immediately when I start to talk about it. Okay, and the other is the aspect of what is on the ground the manifestation of the system of domination and control. Now we know that there are multidimensional beings out there manipulating things from above, but we look around the world and we think we see, certain things in play because we were taught at school. We had maps put in front of us and names given to areas and explanations of histories and governments, and we were told this is the way it is. Okay, and that is the other aspect of this conversation. So there's really two main thrusts to it. It's an explanation of, on the ground, what the world political, social, financial structure actually is behind the facade that's presented to us. And the other is the technique by which they're manipulating us, intellectually, emotionally, socially manipulating us to only pay attention to the paradigm they're presenting. Because what they're in fact doing is simply limiting the scope of our perceptions to one paradigm. And if you listen to the interview with Teal and Andrew, one of Teal's views is that as a result of the event, we will have an infinite number of perspectives that we can explore unfettered, which I will certainly look forward to, but at the moment we're being presented with one. So as far as the on-the-ground effect, the world's a very confusing place to look at. If you've been observing politics and information sources for a long time, you'll realize none of the world makes sense. We set all these things in motion. We shift massive. We purportedly shift massive amounts of resources to places that need them, yet they're still poor. We have elections where we elect people who say they will fix the problems, and they never do. And we have massive movements from the people to have peace through the world, but we never have peace. The United Nations doesn't work. The financial system keeps bumping and failing. The press doesn't appear to give us the truth. So why, what's going on? And the simple fact is the world is one corporation. It's one thing. Now I've arrived at this point through the work of folks like Scott Bartle and Brad, and they're people close to me, but also all the massive, amazing researchers around the world who've gone through the legal system particularly, and realized that all the companies are corporations. The things like the UN, it's a corporation. Foundations, political parties, corporations, they're all companies. What do companies have? They usually have some kind of physical assets and a physical industry, a physical inventory. They have employees, and they have owners. That's the kicker. My country is a corporation. I don't know who owns it, but I do know it's a corporation because it's registered in the Securities and Exchange Commission, I think it is, the SEC, in the United States. It's actually registered as a corporation with its headquarters in Washington, D.C. at the Australian Embassy. And if you look up virtually every Western country, you will find they're registered as corporations. But none of their owners are actually stated. Now, most probably the owner of this country is the Queen of England, because she was the original sovereign, and she would have been the one that acquiesced to the corporatisation of it. The corporatisation of countries mainly occurred after the deliberate crash of the stock market between the First and Second World Wars. The bailout deal for those bankrupt sovereign nations was to become corporations behind the scenes. And in essence, it wasn't that the countries themselves became corporations, but they were bankrupt, and the corporate entities that stepped in were actually receivers. And we've remained in receivership ever since that time as bankrupts, and have been prevented from paying out the debt which was imposed on us as part of the bailout. So we've actually been kept in a state of absolute control by corporations. In the case of this country, it's 80 years. It happened in the United States just after the Civil War. That was a political failure of Congress and Senate to recognise what was going on, and the original Constitution was replaced with a corporate version. So if you look around the planet and you want to know what's going on, the invasion of Iraq was a hostile corporate takeover. Iraq was not part of the system. They sent in the corporate enforcers known as NATO and the military forces of countries including mine, and they actually took over that country and they put in a central bank, and it's now part of the system. And Libya was the same, hostile corporate takeover. Syria is the same, hostile corporate takeover. These countries have resources and they're valuable, and the system wanted to control them. At the same time, the system makes massive amounts of money out of these wars, spreads fear, maintains the meme that the world's full of enemies that must be fought. Which brings me to the second part of this. I'll just conclude the first part by saying one of the simpler things you can tell people, if you want to make sense of the world and you understand that your government's a corporation, that it has owners, and that those owners are in fact co-owners of corporations planet-wide, that it actually all ties back through lines of ownership and control, back through boards, back through shareholdings, back to a very small number of people and companies. In fact, it does go back to people in the end. If we could drill back through the public records into the private records, because that's where it becomes difficult, we would simply find that it probably goes back to a handful of people. They could fit in a room and sit around a table. One of the aspects of the control of the media industry, for instance, is that there's purportedly 5 companies that publicly own all the media on the planet. And in fact, I've been told it all goes back to one. There's a company called the Bennington Group that you won't find anything about anywhere on the internet, who actually control those 5 companies. And that's where the media is controlled from on this planet. That's just one example of, if you went through almost any aspect of what's on this planet, you can drill back to a very small group of people, and there'll be a small board of people on the Bennington Group who call the shots as to what goes out on the media and what doesn't. Now, the insidious nature of this is that it's concealed. It's concealed behind the apparent countries of the planet. Well, that they're countries. They've been around for a long time. My country was supposedly had a federal government brought in 1900, 113 years ago. Yes, that's all very nice, and that's what I was taught, that's what I believe, that's what we're sold at school as being the thing. And it's not true. It's actually fiction, it's a lie, it's put in front of us from the moment we're born, and we actually take it on board as truth. And until we're presented with evidence such as the stuff that we've dug up in the last few years, you can't tell that it's a lie. And it is. And the other thing that they use is division. This is a really simple aspect, and it blew me away when it was first really pointed out to me. We're in what a gentleman in Australia called Franco Collins, a legalist, calls the Roman cult. And the creed of the Roman cult is divide and conquer. So how do they control us? It's by division. Just division. And if you look at everything planet-wide, they have divided us and set us against one another for thousands of years. And the division starts at planetary level. We're divided into what they're called nations. And the nations are divided into states. The states are divided into counties, into cities, into suburbs, into streets, into your house. We've been categorized and filed. And socially speaking, we have been divided in every possible aspect of human life. We've been divided culturally, through religion, through sexuality, through the color of our skin, through the location we live, through the money that we how much money do you earn, which sports team do you follow, which political party do you follow. It's division, 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 division. Everywhere that we look, we are divided. And one of the aspects that's come out very strongly from this show is that we're divided from information about our bodies. We don't know what our bodies can do. And everywhere you look, if you look at a conflict on this planet, and you start to look for, what's really going on behind it, look for the division. And specifically, if you see it overlaid with fear of conflict, fear of attack, you're looking at the system. It's being divided. So, in the show, Danny actually was wanting us to talk very much about Syria a few weeks ago, and my view is Syria is another act of division. Right? It's being sold to us as a racial conflict, as a political struggle, and it's just the system of domination and control inserting division and fear into the collective. So if you look back at 9/11, it divided us. Okay, it set the Western world against a particular aspect of religion, which for a long time now has been developed as an enemy to others. It's division all the way down the line. That's all they've been doing is. That's why my radio station is called One People's Oneness Radio. The cure for this division is in fact unity and sovereignty. And when we start to find that leadership from within, and we step away from accepting the information as presenting us with a reality, and we create our own, then we have freedom. And as I think Elizabeth said earlier, the process of the people coming to their feet is what we're really looking at, because that is the moment where the division is actually removed. That moment. So, it's just gone 1/2 the hour, and I hope that helps people in their discussions with others. It's a really simple argument because it cuts straight through all of the local politics. You don't have to explain how it is that the Republicans and Democrats are the same thing. Your argument is simple. They are corporations, and all the corporations belong to one thing. If there's just one thing out there, it's one entity, and that's really the sum total of the effect that those multidimensional beings that Andrew has taught us about have had on this planet. They've put this system into place, and it's just behind the scenes. It's one thing, loosely connected, subtly connected, but always present, and the division is again inserted into our thought, into our civilization from the moment we're born. And just one aspect of it is the concept of hierarchy. Okay, there's always a hierarchy present in every aspect of this one thing that we're looking at. We're taught to not question authority, so the hierarchy always works. So there's some thought to digest, and it's a discussion I have frequently, as you can tell. So I'm going to try giving Andrew a call here and see if we can get him on the phone. Ring, ring. Hopefully we'll get straight through. But this is live radio, so we won't know. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Andrew.
Just a moment.
It's Larry.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
We're doing fine. We've just been having a good conversation over here. You made it to the
Very
airport.
Cool.
You made it to the airport.
No, we're on the way to the airport. We're on the road to the Hui. Should be about 30 minutes trip there, maybe 20-minute trip there, and we got to drop the rental car off and get to the airport. So I got maybe 20, 25 minutes until I got to drop the rental car off.
Excellent. Well, look, we've been having a conversation about the usual wide variety of things. 9/11 itself is sort of prominent in people's thought because of the date, and other questions have been posed. Would you like to jump straight into questions? Did you want to tell us more about what's happening with you? What would you like to do?
Hold on one second. Yeah. All right. I may drop your call here in a second. Can you roll that window up? I just got a lot of echo in here. what's going on with me is what's happened is the first womb gate, the womb chakra in Syria has awoken, and it awokened on Tuesday this week. And the irony of that is, if you look on the news, you'll see kids that are being shown gas attacks on the public televisions, and seeing all of these what I call Baghdad moments, where the reality itself can't function, and all it can do is show the propaganda at its fair point value.
Now, you referred to Baghdad Bob, I think there. You broke up just a touch. Baghdad Bob, I'll just remind folks, was that functionary inside the Iraqi government that was proclaiming that the Iraqi army had successfully beaten off the invading armies whilst there were NATO tanks coming down the street behind him. In other words, propaganda that's so obvious it's hilarious.
Right. And for anyone that watches the news, what have they been showing the last 7 days? Endless amounts of videos of people going through sarin gas attacks with their eyes glazed over, little kids in convulsions and vomiting, people lined up in hospital rooms or makeshift morgues, all dead from sarin gas attacks. And if you look at those videos, you really look at those videos with your heart, your real heart, and not the etheric programming, you realize that those are not live footages, that those are not footages of the Syrian people, that those are really not real videos. They're all enactments.
So what we think is going on, that is, the information is partially untrue, is actually not quite correct, that it's all being fabricated.
Well, the reason it's being fabricated is because they can't convince anybody that there's nuclear weapons of mass destruction. So they're showing them, which started by Saddam Hussein using gas weapons on his own people, and they're trying to rehash that patriot part of the program of people here in the United States that go out and stop the big bad guy, when in fact this is just like weapons of mass destruction. It's a fabrication. You know, they tried to shove fabrication down our throat with the second Gulf War, and people didn't buy it right away. But it's the Patriot program that turned us back into the war machine. And it's the Patriot program that's being triggered by those videos.
Now, the Patriot program, you've said in the past, the Patriot program is particularly effective.
Correct, because you're working on a nationalist concept that goes back to a constitution that has soul family relations to it about being a free country, when in fact your vote really means nothing. Every time you vote, 505 people are determining what 380 million people deserve. That is not representative government in any way, shape, or form. For the banking industry, where not one single person has gone to jail from the 2008 banking scandal. Not one person.
You know, right there is absolute evidence that the system only ever acts to protect itself.
Correct.
Right there. Now, you spoke a moment ago of the womb chakras a womb chakra opening in the Middle East.
In Damascus. In Damascus. There's actually a cluster of 11 that are right in the Mediterranean area. And the first one went active under Damascus. The second womb chakra went active under Mount Fuji. And a third one has become active and then became passive. And when I say active, it is like when a woman starts her menstrual cycle, there's that little tingle that the body says to the mind, something is going on, and we're having our cycle beginning. This is the very beginning of a menstrual cycle for Earth, the one that's been held back by the amount of violence and war above those womb chakras.
Did you say there was one in Mount Fuji?
Correct. The one in Mount Fuji opened up about 25 minutes after the one in Syria opened up. And then there was a third one that went to go open up in the Bahamas, and that one was paused also because of the amount of violence that's going on in China, because there's a China womb chakra. There's technology over it right now that's preventing it from fully opening. It's only at about 6% open, and there's a tremendous amount of interdimensional off-world technology, as well as a series of timeline incursion events that are going to go on in Jingshuo, China. For anyone that's out there that's a news watcher, start paying attention to the Chinese news feeds. And what you're really looking for is the propaganda. The propaganda will tell you everything. You can read through it because you know what propaganda is.
Now, the womb chakra openings sound like they're pivotal towards the energetic situation moving forward.
All the people that will live above a womb chakra will go through a rapid cellular and DNA transformation based in their dream world. So the whole purpose of a womb chakra is Earth's original purpose to be a galactic seed planet, where those people that live on those areas are able to create life in a mass form and then bring that mass form of life to another blank planet and begin terraforming it at a soul level by bringing entire, continents of trees within a few days to be planted on the surface of a planet, an entire ecosystem of rivers and microorganisms all being delivered in a period of a few weeks, so a planet goes through a rapid transformation because you're bringing literally the soul from the planet Earth that has been bonded with the tree, and then that tree is being bonded to the new surface of another blank Akashic record world, and that blank Akashic record world is inviting brand new souls to come and live in it so that they can begin the brand new experience of a planet. That's Earth's original purpose. And the 200 womb chakras that are on Earth are to aid that process of mass transportation of plants, animals, vegetables, anything that can bring sustenance and life to other worlds on a mass scale. To seed planets to create new forms of pineapples or coconuts or hybrid all of them with the will of the planet, because you're bringing shamans with you who know how to set up reality bubbles. All the things that I've been talking about, the awakening here, except that's a starting process on another planet.
Right, and it's going to be applied to us first, obviously, to reawaken
Correct.
this world.
So the people will suddenly learn how to farm perfectly. The people will learn how to get along. The people that are in the womb chakras that have Warrigal in them, they're the ones that are going to have the most amount of resolution done to them right away because they're the ones that need it. That is what domination and control has put as its pawns on the surface of that. And Earth can wipe the board clean of all of those pawns by awakening them all and starting a chain reaction of soul family density separation, where those that are forced into this war scenario, because many, many, many of them are in a dominated reincarnation cycle, those people will suddenly find that they don't need to be there, simply do not need to be there. And when they fall asleep, they will be looking for their ancestral relations through the dream world of Earth, and Earth will put them in communion and union with the healers that can begin healing them so that they can locate away or bilocate away from those areas and go through the separation of density of soul families. They're the first wave of migration that gets off the world.
Right. The process is starting to become clearer to me, and I hope to the audience of what's actually underlying this whole awakening. Geopolitically, if you observe this geopolitically, the information you're putting forward will only become clearer later in the process when the geopolitical stuff is out of the way. So a question for you at the moment, Andrew, is there, in continents like the United States and Australia, how many womb chakras are in those locations? Are there chakras in every continent?
In Australia, there's 31, but a couple of them are under the water near the Barrier Reef. There's a big line of them that are there, because that's also a womb chakra. There's a number that are near Antarctica. So Australia has the access to the most amount immediately, like within a longboat ride or a super long helicopter ride or a jet that, as long as they can land somewhere, you can begin activating and functioning with those womb chakras, which will radically change the surface energy grid of Earth. And then it's about finding the control rooms. We haven't talked about those recently, but there are 40 control rooms. 21 have been taken over by both good, bad, and neutral. And there'll be the separation of density of all those walk-ins that I've been telling you that are coming in. We had 200 million walk-ins come in on Tuesday.
Wow.
200 million.
Ooh.
Okay?
So that's 200 million living humans who
are part of the system of domination and control, who now are no longer part of the system of domination and control. They have walk-ins in them.
Now the
All
walk-in...
the walk-ins are going to do is go through a 6-day adjusting period, a 7-day adjusting period, where they adjust to the new contracts. These are the shock troops of the Galactic Central Sun. These guys are not nobodies. They've done domination and control so many times, they volunteered for the most difficult position of all, and that's D-Day.
So in 6 or 7 days, just to clarify one thing, when you say walk-ins, you're not necessarily meaning that a different soul will walk into a body, but a large chunk of their higher self will actually come in to actually, if you like, the way that Peter and Michael put it is to increase your soul mass, your consciousness.
It is both. It is both. There are those that put themselves in as resistance pre-Earth, as a cell of one, who chose to be activated during D-Day. And their higher soul has been in training, observing the world on a dream grid, or a geopolitical level, and their higher self is experiencing this world through the perceptions of the I am self. And as the I am self gives way to the fact that it's open, the resistance cell is open, the womb chakra is triggered, the rest of the contracts clear out, everything that's domination and control, and it returns that soul to the Earth original reality format. They become temporary reality programmers, and many of them are going to be your doctors, your lawyers, your firefighters, and your police officers worldwide. And the purpose they're being put in at this point in the game is to disrupt the flow of puppetry communication between the highest sources and the ground sources that may be given orders to open fire on a public to start riots.
Indeed.
So they're putting good people in the chain of command, so the chain of command is broken through domination and control. Because all domination and control can do is react. It's a set of programs that trigger cultural responses, and those cultural responses they've put in there are zealots, so they go and follow through on those actions.
Would that include the media that have been walked into?
Correct. Yeah, correct. The media.
There's two things going on in the groups that I work with at the moment. One is a pushing on the door of the media to print the truth, and the other is pushing on the banking system to recognise that the people are the value. So it would sound like the timing of these exercises is spot on, because if these walk-ins are going to be fully functional 6 or 7 days from Tuesday, then from last Tuesday, then was it a week ago that this happened?
Yep.
Okay, so they're pretty much ready to roll. So now's the time to move and actually take advantage of that change of the game.
They're already moving. They're already working to do what it is that they do, which would disrupt communications from the highest forms of puppetry to the lowest forms of puppetry. Now, the other side of walk-ins are people that volunteered to be alive here now and to enter government, whether they're an army general or a private that, cooks food. Doesn't matter. Once they're in the system, they're in the system of domination control, they have access to the inner dream grids of those command structures and can act as dream saboteurs to prevent programs from being opened up on a massive dream scale, so you could activate 10 units of the American nuclear facilities to go active. Into their minds, they are dreaming a real an event and scenario and could launch whatever it is that they wanted, because the system is using the sacred geometry dream cities to make them act, so that they can fracture disunity reality and make it harder for the walk-ins to take over the next phase of the Dreamtime event. Earth is going to go through the separation of densities, which means the older souls will collect to the older souls, and youngers to the youngers, and the middle age to the middle age. And once that process is finished through the dreaming, the elders will split with the youngers, and the middle age will split with both sides. And then you'll begin the search for soul family in the dream time. This is at the stage, like in Walking in Energy 3, where I said there'll be the children at the breakfast table at high school or junior high, which is before they eat breakfast. They'll be sharing dreams, or at lunch they'll be sharing dreams. And one will go, I had the same dream, and 10 others will say in the same period of the day, I had the same dream. And that'll begin what's called a whisper campaign, and that whisper campaign will spread throughout the internet as people begin to share videos. on a more adult scale, you'll be sitting in your cubicle, and the person next to you will go, oh my God, deja vu. And then you'll have deja vu of them going deja vu. And then somebody sitting next to you will go, oh my God, I had deja vu of your deja vu and your deja vu. Blatant in your face things that are representative of the infinite dream world bleeding over to the finite existing you.
And of course, the thing we need to bear in mind is just because someone's a child doesn't mean they have a young soul.
That's right.
It's now you call this the splitting of the densities, and this has been described by many people, or at least aspects of it have been described by many people, of the Earth becoming like 2 or 3 different Earths. In actual fact, we'll all be in the same place on the same planet, but starting to share different realities. Is that a more accurate description
Correct.
of it?
Well, bubbles of realities will begin to form, and those bubbles of reality will transform the surface of Earth to its highest vibrational state, and still allow other bubbles of reality around it to not be rapidly affected by the higher vibration entities that are there. So if a low vibration entity or lower vibration entity wanted to enter a high vibration realm, it would just have to go through a little bit of an adaptation period. And when it wanted to leave, it could return to its own realm and then go through an adaptation period, as could any of the higher go to the lowers. You set up rules for high energy beings come into different energy environments. And that allows all of those realities to be fully expressed. Here's another example of the dream world. You could find yourself dreaming during the day or during a nap and find yourself in high school, reliving an event where it was traumatic for you, but at the same time you're counseling yourself about that. And that's something that recently happened to Helene here, and I'm relaying that story because it was important for her, because she asked me exactly, is that what the separation of dream worlds is about? And I told her yes, because you're reliving yourself, teaching yourself, and you can literally find yourself in both places at once. And don't let that make you afraid. It's your opportunity to realize you're a multidimensional being, that you're living all of your past, present, future lives simultaneously, and it is the I am present you, the one who makes the physical choice of what skin layer of past, present, and future life you're going to express.
In people's experience, do you expect that most people will start to remember aspects of past lives clearly and recognize them as past lives?
Yes. The thing is, when we're born, we're ripped out of our embryonic sac and given a slap on the ass, 22 injections, and stuck in an incubator. They've broken love at all angles there. Well, what else they've done is taken the ability for you to remember your past lives. Now, we know that when you come into this world, you come in as a blank slate. Well, there's a fundamental rule of the reality that says if you're taken out of your opportunity to remember up to 55 or 30% of your past lives, and that is the mother and father sharing part space during new transition phases of that baby from the embryonic sac to being fully separate, to being separate from the umbilical cord, to being on their own, to being breastfed. And that cycle right there is what completes that soul's chance for remembering up to 30 or 40% of their past lives. Now imagine how different our world would be. Would reincarnation even be possible if we remembered 30% of our past lives?
It's hard to imagine what that would be like, actually. Difficult.
Right.
Difficult.
How could they trap you in a reincarnation cycle? They can't.
Yeah.
They can't even put fine print in your contracts without you going, hey.
Where did that come from?
Exactly.
In a properly functioning Earth, you know, we've been having past lives for tens of thousands of years, some of us. There's people been here for a long, long time, trapped in this cycle. If the Earth was functioning as it should, how many lifetimes would you actually live on this planet? A handful?
That's a really, really, really good question. And the answer is thousands and thousands and thousands, because the experience is so much more incredible than other worlds.
But it would be a matter.
So much more incredible than other worlds.
But it would be a matter of choice rather than being trapped here.
Right. See, the thing is, many people, and this is my educated view of the Akashic records and what the world was like in between domination and control breakages where beings lived here. They would come here and live a tremendous life, so rich and fulfilling and experiencing, they'd leave the next lifetime to go back and bring more people here.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
But their leaving and coming back would not affect the linear time in which they were incarnating in. So they could go to another world and live 1,000,000 years and come back to Earth like they had never left.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the experience that's different. There are linear time observations that have to play on other worlds. The big thing about incarnating on planets is you may be looking for a person that's on the planet, and they may leave. They may get on a ship and go somewhere. And if you're incarnated there and have soul contracts and their ancestral karma, then you can't find them. And on Earth, you come back at the exact point you need to be to everyone. You've never left.
So the Earth
It's a
is
seamless exchange of experience.
yeah. So that's a particularly unique aspect of the Earth, is it?
Yes, because of Earth's dreaming mind. For Earth to be able to send DNA wisdom and DNA objects to new worlds, blank Akashic record worlds as a seed planet, it must be able to be linked into the dream grids of other planets. So the other important reason why Earth's a massive target is if you own the surface of Earth and are able to take over her dreaming body, you can dream invade up to hundreds of millions of other worlds and tune the planet's overmind into worlds that haven't even been created yet so that they could transfer DNA wisdom to them, because that's Earth's purpose. So literally Earth has access to millions and millions of other planets through the Dreamtime grid, and that's because those are brothers and sisters, nephews, cousins, and uncles to Earth when she still had a physical body.
Is that why the Earth was, or one of the reasons why the Earth was quarantined, so that couldn't be done?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, because that would be a very, very dangerous thing. That gives you access to, half this universe, I would suspect.
More than half. It gives you access to the spots that aren't even created yet.
Wow.
Because it's linked into the Prime Creator's exchange of wisdom between the youth or age of souls. It's literally a part of that between an interuniversal exchange, because there is a need to exchange sentience from one universe to another to complete cycles. And then there are people that are nearing the end of their cycle in this universe and cannot go on until Earth is finished. And there are other universes in the same series. So there's a big bottleneck. There's going to be a tremendous amount of flip over of beings that are 1, 2, and 3rd degree separation of the Prime Creator in this universe and other universes. Many of them will be force deported, and others will simply realize their mistakes and honor their duties as they're leaving.
So
pass the torch to the new elders.
So it isn't just the other races that we're aware of that are part of this universe, the Syrians, the Andromedans, etc., that are waiting for this graduation. It's actually affecting other universes as well.
Correct.
Okay, so
because Earth's capability of reaching out to so many worlds at once, and then you put timeline genocide on a system that's meant to create brand new DNA.
The timeline includes...
Here's an example. Here's an example. There was a species that came to Earth during the second rise of Lemuria, and the womb chakras were fully open, and they made a very, very special, we'll just call it like hedge shrub, like in France they have the hedgerows.
Yes.
Okay, and these things would grow all over the planet. They'd grow in them into sacred geometry, and they grow them to basically gain sentience because they were a massive hive of organizations. And they could connect to them in such a way that you could bring younger life into them and share dream space within them. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to describe, but these shrubs became a massive, massive part of other worlds because they adapted to lower sentient planets really fast. They raised the vibrations fast. It was an incredible invention. Well, that timeline of that one person who went to that one planet who brought that first, round of seeds back to a new world got erased. That means everything that uses that plant as a technology gets erased too. 1 degree of separation.
So
that's why Earth caused literally creation to come near an end.
That's just one example of the things
Right,
that have
that's
happened.
one example of the many timeline incursions that have erased things that weren't supposed to be erased.
Have the timeline incursions stopped? Because it sounds like they're still going on.
They're going on here on Earth because Earth is the foundation of all of them, and this is the foundation is what they're targeting. It's not about what happens halfway through a captured time, and that's pointless. You have to get to the foundation to erase it.
So it's still going on here on Earth, and it's being done by forces here on Earth. Is that correct?
Both good, bad, and neutral. Many of them, what they're doing, are in this endless cycle of countering each other's move.
But it's not happening from the other planets that are literally were creating timeline incursions to try and become first species.
Correct. It's all everything that's being using timelines is here on the planet.
So there's still a lot of move and counter-move going on at this local level.
Correct. What's being played out in the micro is a reflective of the macro. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In every case. Look what's going on geopolitically. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's translate to that macro. So Obama isn't Obama. Obama represents the hope of a unified action. Doesn't matter if the information is right or wrong. And you have 5,383 species all unified to help in their own separate unity consciousness to maintain a quarantine at a proper way so Earth can go through its awakening, at the same time removing many millions of layers of multidimensional technology that is in a fortified Earth, 9 layers of pyramid fortification. So it's a tremendous, tremendous reach to do this.
Any other particular aspects of what's going on currently that are good examples of the micro and the macro? I mean, Obama's a good one. What about the Pope? What about the Pope?
The Pope, I'll get to in a second. Putin yelling at Obama and Obama yelling at Putin. That is an example of the Pleiadians and the Orions and Syrian faction realizing that some of the people that they've put in charge have become zealots, and the upper parts of the political organization that is in unity consciousness has realized that there are subcultures of unity consciousness that are withholding information to unity consciousness in whole. And that's the most detrimental thing to any unity consciousness, is the pockets of information that are withheld.
Fascinating. So anything that's going on politically is simply it's reflected at a greater scale around us.
Right.
So,
example, the actions of what goes on in our world are like the breathing of lungs. So the CIA is a big chunk of a lung. The Russian version of the other KGB is another version of the lungs. What's going on in London may be the colon or the sphincter. Ha ha ha.
Yep.
So on and so forth, representing the body of expression. And the womb chakras are the representation that Earth's going through a menstrual cycle that's been withheld on a planetary scale.
It's a pretty straightforward relationship, really. So the Pope is actually playing what role in the macro?
In the macro, that's the other dark forces that are contract holders because they're the puppeteers, the off-world puppeteers.
Okay.
And the Pope is representation that I'm the puppet, but that I'm live puppet. I'm talking through this vessel. And there's a realization that there isn't one person in control of the Pope. That he's a sellout, and it's always been a sellout for whatever layer of multidimensional entity that's going to take domination and control by the hands and say it's mine for the next 20 years, so somebody kicks me out of the power.
Yeah. Andrew, it's we've just passed the second hour. Unfortunately, we'll have to wind the show up here. I have a need to not get off my schedule too much today. Really glad you could make it in for this last half hour. It's been absolutely fantastic to jump in with that information about the walk-ins, because that confirms a whole lot of things that are going on, need to keep going on. Is there anything you wanted to just put in to kind of put a full stop at the end of today's show?
I'm going to tell people to turn off the TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean really turn off the TV. This is your opportunity to turn off the etheric programming, to broadcasting, to turn off Facebook, to turn all of that off and just feel the earth. Just feel the earth. So you're at this vital, important time where you got to feel the earth. It needs your dream attention. So before you go to sleep, visualize the North Pole, the Aurora Borealis. If you need to go get a YouTube video of it to burn it into your mind, please do that. That is where your ancestors exist. That's where you get to create a spiritual cord of equity, what is a fundamental rule, law, built into this reality. So you may find remedy and resolve to any other action in this reality that is affecting your free will. It is where you declare your free will in front of all your ancestors. And it's your given right by living on Earth to do this.
You're referring then to...
Tell yourself before you go to sleep, I dream with the Earth Mother in the Aurora Borealis.
Lovely. And of course there's the soul contract revocations to cement this in place.
Yes. I encourage people to make their own. You know yourself better than anyone else. And you know what your habit patterns and addictions are, and you can revoke the habit patterns and addictions.
That's fantastic advice, actually. I know Hope Girl has actually been writing her own the last week or so, and she's finding that just the act of writing them is as important as the act
Absolutely.
of saying it out loud. So yeah, look, I'd thoroughly encourage people to do that. You know, think of the North Pole. I've just realised that there's certain things I see in my head when I'm drifting off to sleep, which actually are the Aurora Borealis. It's actually, I've realised that the green lights that I see when I go to sleep are actually probably that.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And that layer has always been there for you. There are times when people look back when they were a child, and you close your eyes and all those colors and swirls and everything, and you'd ask your parents what are there, and no, that's just the stuff you see when you close your eyes. No, that is the entrance to the dream world. That is how your eyes perceive the invisible layers of the dream world, which is like the Aurora Borealis, which, if anyone has ever seen, has streamers and patterns and things that explode, and it's just like looking at your eyelids when you're a kid.
Yeah, brilliant connection. Andrew, thank you so much for touching base. I hope the trip goes well. We'll catch up with you in Los Angeles in a couple of days' time, and hopefully Thursday. Yep, Nickie will be on the show. And
I believe so. We'll have to find out.
Sorry, what was that again?
I'm not sure about her schedule, but we'll find out. She should be there.
That'll be good if she could be there. Yeah, we've got things to talk about. Okay, look, you have a great trip.
Okay, you too.
And we'll see you in on your Thursday.
Thursday. Yep.
Okay.
Take it easy, everyone. Love you all.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Andrew. And to all the listeners out there, sorry we had to kind of chop that short, but we do try and keep this to as close to 2 hours as we can. I can hear my little companions urging me outside that their walk time is due, and unfortunately I have some other things to attend to in my morning, so I must not push out the show too much. But thank you very much for hanging in with me. Thank you very much to those who called in and joined in the conversation. Very enjoyable. Good information as usual. So I hope you'll join us in a couple of days' time. I've got the Long Conversation show tomorrow on One People's Oneness Radio at this same time. If you'd like to join us there, we've got Julian Wells on, and then a political scientist, an ex-professor called Anoka Shiva, and we'll be talking about community. So I hope you'll join me then, and I wish you have a great day. Bye for now.